My name is Evelyn Hart, 19 years old. It started in the garage with a box and a careless hand. I was home from my first semester. A week between classes, a suitcase in the corner, and a head full of half-remembered lectures, helping my father clear cobwebs and old oil cans. He hummed under his breath, the radio soft, while Mom stacked boxes into a neat, nervous tower. Outside, the cul-de-sac smelled faintly of cut grass and distant barbecue, everything ordinary and safe. Then something caught on a splintered shelf, and the box bowed and spilled like a scandal. Papers, dozens of them, fluttered across the concrete in slow, ugly snowflakes. Birth certificates, social security cards, a driver's license that wasn't ours. For a heartbeat, I thought they were the usual miscellany, warranties, old tax forms. Then I saw the names, and the breath left my body. They weren't our names. The photos on the licenses were unmistakably us, the same cheekbones, the same crooked front tooth I'd hated in middle school. But the names were wrong. My father's casual smile stared back from a card that read, Vincent Kowalski. My mother's signature was printed beside Patricia Kowalski. My sister's prom shot wore someone else's last name, and, beneath it, a younger version of me. Rebecca Kowalski. I called for my father. He came in with a towel wrapped around his hand, oil under his fingernails. He grabbed the license as if it might bite him, scanning the spilled pages with an expression that changed color in the span of 2 heartbeats. Confusion, then a thin, knife-edged fear. "Where did you get this?" he asked, the voice that coaches Little League and tucks away receipts suddenly foreign in his mouth. "I don't know. The top shelf," I said. What is this?" My fingers trembled against the paper. The garage smelled suddenly too small, too close, like secrets kept in a jar. He didn't answer at first. When he finally looked up, his face was a territory I hadn't mapped, raw, tired, and older. He told us to call Mom and my sister and to sit in the living room. His hands wouldn't stop moving, picking at the edge of a rag, a practiced motion from years of pretending everything was okay. We sat in silence while our family life rearranged itself quietly into the truth. My sister, 16 and still a promise of braces and piano recitals, gripped my elbow like a child who'd learned too fast that the world could tilt. My mother kept her head down, knuckles white around a mug no one drank from. My father paced, and when he finally spoke, it was like someone had aired out the house, letting a cold wind in. "There is something we should have told you," he said. He said it the way you tell a story to a child about the thunder, small facts that should not be terrifying, but are. Our real last name is Kowalski. We've been living under assumed identities for the last 15 years. We're in the witness protection program. The words hit with the bluntness of a falling tire. Witness protection. People who wanted them dead. A life built on a false name, on curated routines, on designed non-existence. Everything that felt like proof that my life would be ordinary. The scholarship emails, the way Mom and Dad smiled at parent-teacher night, the carpool routes, shivered under the news. "How dangerous?" my sister asked. Her voice was small, and every time she blinked something like a small animal hid behind her eyes. "Very," Dad said. He was careful with the truth like you handle a newborn. Too much, and it dies. Before you were born, before we moved, your uncle, Vincent, he made choices, dangerous ones. He testified. He did the right thing. They put us all under new names and new lives for safety. We thought it would keep us safe. It should have been a relief, a reason for gratitude, the system, the new names, a clean break. But relief blinked away when, later that night, I crept into Dad's office and found a folder with the real names written in cramped blue ink. Anton Kowalski, Patricia Kowalski, Victoria Kowalski, Rebecca Kowalski. Jacobian ghosts of a life we hadn't lived. I did what I did with any unknown. I Googled. I typed Vincent Kowalski Detroit like a dare. The first result made my mouth go dry. An old news article, the face in grainy black and white that could have been my father's twin, same hands, same jawline, captioned, Vincent Kowalski, key witness in the Torino crime family trial, found shot. The date, 3 months ago. My hands blurred across the laptop trackpad. If Vincent had been dead for months, and this family had been shuttled away, what did that mean for the man sleeping in the room above the garage? The one who'd taught me how to shave with a steady hand and how to fix a leaky faucet? My mind looped back to small things. The way Dad never used social media, the way he'd always park facing exits, the carefulness of his hugs, the rehearsed stories about his childhood. All of it felt like rehearsal notes for a life meant to protect a secret. I ran upstairs. I flung open the bedroom door. My parents were already awake, stiff and lucid in that way that people become when the world is on fire. "He's dead?" I demanded. I felt foolish for saying it aloud. Dad's eyes were two storm windows. He told us the truth in pieces. Vincent had been his brother, stubborn, reckless, the kind who'd once dragged Dad into bad decisions. When Vincent got into deeper trouble, the family had been given protection. In a desperate gamble for normalcy, Vincent had volunteered to take Dad's place in a new life, to become the man who would attend PTA meetings and pretend to be our father so the others could be safe. He'd done it for love, or perhaps for penance, or both. And then, against the marshal's orders, Vincent had come back to Detroit to see his dying mother. He'd been found dead 3 days later, shot execution style. The paper trail was public now. The implication was an exposed throat. The protection program had holes. Somebody had found them. The room shifted beneath me. I thought of my scholarship, the campus bookstore where I worked, of Marcus, who was my steady now, who called me at midnight and knew how to make me laugh when I wanted to unravel. I thought of small things that suddenly felt enormous. The prom dress hanging in my closet, the acceptance letter to the program I'd dreamed of, photos of birthdays on the mantel. My phone buzzed in my hand. An unknown number, a message loaded with a figment of civilized menace. "Hello, Rebecca. My grandfather would very much like to meet your family. He has questions about Vincent. Please contact me when you are ready. Lucia Torino." I read it twice. Lucia Torino. The name tasted like a warning. The timestamp said the message had been sent 3 days earlier, before we'd found the box, before the Google results, before our lives tilted. For a moment, I wanted to throw up. For another moment, I felt the animal brightness inside me. Fury. They'd known. They'd been watching. In my head, the image flicked. A black sedan across our street, someone taking notes, a face in the neighbor's window. "We had at best a week," my father said quietly later, his hand moving in invisible maps. "The Marshal Service will move us if they can. But with Vincent dead, everything changes. If they found him, they could find us." The new plan was rough and immediate. Packs for a single week, cash, burner phones, routes, a change of cars in the next county. No social media, no contact with old friends. Disappear again. Except this time the world had seen our faces and named our past. My sister cried in his bathroom for a long time. Mom sat with her, steady and liquid, while Dad scribbled in a small notebook, routes, numbers, names to call. I packed, hands shaking, sliding my scholarship notification between socks because I couldn't decide whether to bring it as proof or as a relic of a life I'd been promised. Before we left, Marcus knocked. He'd driven 2 hours, despite classes and obligations, because he'd refused to leave me alone. He took in our huddle of raised voices and damp faces, and something in his mouth changed into a new shape, protective, furious. "Are you okay?" he asked, looking from one of us to the next, then straight at me. He was a steady presence with warm hands and a tired smile, my boyfriend who believed in small commitments, study dates and joint grocery lists and running in the morning. He held my face in his palms, and I wanted to press myself into him and never move. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face, closest to mine, went pale. The screen flashed a name, Lucia Torino. Marcus closed his eyes for a second, then put the phone away. "It's fine," he said too quickly. "She's just someone who knows my past, my ex." It came out small and ridiculous. Lucia, the same name that had texted my family. The world tightened into a single irrational thread. Marcus's ex, an operative from a crime family? The coincidence felt like a trap. For a wild, one terrifying second thought, I considered refusing to go, to stand my ground, call the police, call the marshals, and demand protection. But there's a certain calm, practiced logic in my father's voice. You don't fight something that can move more quietly than the law. You survive. We left before dawn with 1 bag each and only the clothes on our backs. As we pulled away, a pale woman dropped a single photograph into our mailbox. Vincent in a hospital bed, eyes closed. A card with a polite script read, "We'll talk soon. Lucia." I thumbed the photograph until it blurred under my fingers and felt myself decide something, by a kind of animal will. We run, but not forever. If this was a game of chess, someone had opened with a gambit, sacrificed to shift the board. I had no idea which pieces I would have to give up. I only knew that I would learn the rules fast. We drove into the gray with the car packed tight, the house melting in the rear view like something I'd never lived in, and for the first time in my life, I felt the shape of being someone else settle on my shoulders like a cloak I did not choose. The house we'd just abandoned still smelled like lemon cleaner and last night's coffee. We were back inside only because Lucia Torino asked politely. "Thank you for inviting me in," she said, stepping past my father as if she already owned the threshold. She wore a slate suit and carried a tablet, her hair pulled into a neat knot that made her look like a banker who'd never been late to anything in her life. Outside, a black sedan idled at the curb with 2 more cars parked a block away, identical, patient. Mom's fingers tightened around the spine of a photo album. My sister hovered at the hallway's edge, eyes wide. I stood near the mantel, aware of every family picture that suddenly looked like evidence. Lucia's gaze swept the room. "Very ordinary," she said, almost fond. "You made a nice life here." My father, Anton now, stripped of the suburban alias he'd worn like a uniform, didn't sit. "Say what you came to say." Her smile didn't meet her eyes. "Closure. My grandfather would like to understand what happened to Vincent, why he returned to Detroit, why he died. You can help us." "You had men on him the day he landed," Dad said. "You don't need our help to tell that story." "What we need," Lucia said, setting the tablet on the coffee table, "is what Vincent told us before he died." She tapped the screen. A video filled the glass. Grainy warehouse lighting, a metal chair, a man whose face was my father's face, aged and broken. My mother's breath hitched. My sister pressed her knuckles to her lips. "Don't," Dad said. The single word carried 30 years of history. Lucia paused the image. "He confessed to an insurance policy you created together. A safety deposit box with documents to bury us should the government fail to keep you safe. He gave us a bank name, a branch." Silence pulled tight across the room. "Portland First National," she continued lightly. "Downtown." Dad closed his eyes. It was the smallest nod in the world. "You're going to bring me everything," Lucia said. "We'll review and return what's harmless. We are not unreasonable." She folded her hands. "Assuming we find all of it." "What happens after?" Mom asked. Her voice had the softness of gauze wrapped tight. "To us." "To you?" Lucia tilted her head. "That depends on what we discover about the last 15 years. Her gaze slid almost lazily to me. "Evelyn," she said, tasting my name. "May I call you that? You prefer Evelyn to Rebecca, yes?" My name in her mouth felt like a door unlocking without a key. Before I could answer, a knock sounded at the back door. Marcus stepped in, invited by no one, and exactly when I needed gravity. He took in the room, the frozen video on the tablet, the men outside, the way I stood like a wall, and moved to my side on reflex, his presence solid against my shoulder. Lucia's smile sharpened. "Marcus," she said, as if greeting a former colleague in a hotel lobby, "it's been a long time." My stomach went to ice, the text on his phone, the name. "We dated as teenagers," Marcus said quickly, eyes on me. "Briefly, that's all." Lucia lifted a brow. "Briefly is generous. You were sweet. You believed the world could be negotiated with feelings." She looked back to me. "He's learned since." "Say what you came to say," I told her, matching my father's line, because sometimes the only weapon you have is a spine. She didn't blink. "The evidence first. Then we discuss restitution." "For what?" Dad asked, jaw tight. Lucia swiped to a ledger on her tablet. Numbers scrolled like rain. "Skimming," she said softly. "Not from us, at least not directly. Through us. Money that should have gone into our operations diverted into a side stream registered to Vincent. You benefited, Anton. The house. The comfortable anonymity. My grandfather is traditional. Betrayal carries cost." "We don't have that kind of money," Mom said. "We never did." "Then you'll repay in time." Lucia's tone could have sold mortgage refis. 25% of your family's income from all sources every month until the debt and interest are satisfied. "How long?" I asked. "At your current income? 3 decades, Lucia said. "Give or take." "That's a life sentence," Marcus muttered. Lucia's eyes flicked to him, amused. "Then perhaps you'll be motivated to accelerate." She turned back to us. "We'll also require collateral." My father's voice cut low. "No." Insurance, she corrected. One of your children will relocate to work with us to ensure compliance. They'll be compensated, treated well. No harm will come if you keep your word. Marcus stepped forward. You're not taking Evelyn anywhere. Lucia didn't even look at him. We don't need your permission. Take me, my sister said suddenly, voice thin and brave and terrible. No, Dad snapped. The word cracked. I heard my own voice before I knew I'd decided. I'll go. The room stilled. Marcus turned to me, disbelief raw. Ev! She's still in high school, I said. I'm 19. I can sign. I can work. You've already put your hands on my life, I told Lucia. You won't put them on hers. Lucia's expression shifted, something like approval passing behind the mask. Practical, she said. My grandfather appreciates practicality. Vegas? I asked. The word felt like a plane ticket burning. She nodded. We have legitimate businesses. You'll start with those. Dad's hands trembled. This is wrong. Lucia closed the tablet. This is consequence. We drove to the bank the next morning in quiet, tight-lipped procession. Our truck up front, Lucia's sedan behind, 2 more cars spaced like punctuation. The vault was cold and indifferent to drama. Dad signed forms with a hand that seemed detached from his body. In the small viewing room, he opened the box. Paper side. File folders, USB drives, photographs, ledgers with grainy photocopied checks, audio transcripts stapled crooked. Years of insurance collected by 2 men who thought they could outwit a machine. Lucia examined everything slowly, efficiently, as if grading a test. Comprehensive, she murmured. Vincent was thorough. You have what you came for, Mom said. The words scraped. Lucia slid the last drive into a briefcase. Partly, she said. Now, terms. She outlined them as if we were initiating a joint venture. 25% of all income deposited into an account of their choosing, monthly. Audits performed quarterly. Penalties for missed transfers. Periodic check-ins. If we complied, we'd be allowed to remain ordinary. If we didn't, we'd become a cautionary story whispered between people who knew how consequences worked. And Evelyn, she added, looking to me, will report to Torino Entertainment Group in Las Vegas in 7 days. HR will place her, likely in accounting. We prefer to keep our collateral in clean rooms. Don't call me that, I said. I'm not collateral. She considered me, then shrugged. Then don't behave like it. Marcus stood straighter. If she goes, I go. Lucia smiled without warmth. How romantic. No. You don't get to decide, he began. I already have, she said, and the sentence hung in the air like a door closing. On the way home, the silence in the truck was a living thing. My father drove with both hands at 10 and 2, as if by following the rules of the road, he could bend the rules of our lives. My sister leaned her head against the window and pretended to sleep so we wouldn't see her cry. Mom held my hand so tightly our knuckles went the same color. Marcus followed in his car. I watched him in the side mirror, his jaw set, his eyes flicking between lanes like he could will a different future open. At home, Lucia stood in our hallway and looked at our photos again. She paused at 1, me at 8, with a gap-toothed grin, holding a science fair ribbon the color of a sky I no longer believed in. Do you ever get tired? I asked her quietly when the others were out of earshot. Of doing this for men who sign your checks? Her eyes met mine and went momentarily, unexpectedly, human. You get used to the weight you choose to carry, she said, and sometimes the ones you don't. I thought of Marcus's name lighting her phone, of their past, of the way she'd said briefly like it had mattered once. I wondered what weight she'd chosen, and which had been placed on her by other hands. 7 days, she reminded me, and left us with the briefcase and the schedule and a clock that had already started counting down. That night, I stood in my room and tried to imagine what my life would look like without this room to hold it. My suitcase lay open on the bed like a mouth waiting to be fed. I packed shoes and a black blazer and the silver locket my mother had worn at her wedding. I tucked in a photograph of us at the coast, hair whipped by salt wind, names that weren't ours caught in the spray. Marcus climbed through the window the way he had in high school when we were both pretending our curfews were negotiable. He held me like a promise and whispered plans like prayer. He would come after me, find work, find a way. He would not let me go alone. Don't talk to her, I said into his shirt. Don't let her use you. He stiffened. It was years ago. She'll turn the past into a weapon if you hand it to her, I said. Don't give her anything else. We lay side by side until the window glass went gray. When he finally climbed back out, The room felt like a stage after the audience leaves. Warmth emptied into quiet. 7 days to learn how to say goodbye without breaking. 7 days to become the kind of person who walks into a cage and figures out where the hinges are. The sun over Nevada looks nothing like the one back home. It doesn't rise, it detonates. The first thing I noticed about Las Vegas wasn't the lights or the towers, but the silence between them. Inside that silence, I could hear my own heartbeat reminding me how far away I was from the street where we'd said goodbye. Lucia's sedan glided through the chaos of traffic like she'd rehearsed the route 1,000 times. She didn't speak, not until the city appeared in full. Mirrors and neon. A place that sold illusions wholesale. "This is your new home," she said, steering toward a sleek high-rise. "The company owns the building. Safer that way." I stared up at it. 30 floors of glass, tinted so dark the sunrise barely reached inside. "Safe," I echoed. The word had lost meaning weeks ago. Inside the lobby, men in tailored suits nodded respectfully. Security cameras hummed above every doorway. She handed me a key card and a thin folder. "Apartment 27B, utilities included. You'll report to Torino Entertainment Group at 9 a.m. HR will handle placement." "What kind of work?" I asked. "Accounting, most likely. You'll blend." She looked at me, then added almost softly, "We like people who blend." The apartment was all sleek lines and emptiness, floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that had never been sat on, a refrigerator humming with nothing in it but bottled water. The view was too large, too bright. "Eat," Lucia said, setting a grocery bag on the counter. "You'll need energy. First days are always long." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I admire what you did for your family." "By becoming your hostage?" "By choosing. Most people don't." When she was gone, I stood there for a long time, watching her reflection vanish down the hallway. Morning came, dressed in gold. I put on the blazer I'd packed and caught my reflection in the mirror, hair pulled back, shoulders squared, a stranger with my eyes. Torino Entertainment Group occupied 3 floors of a gleaming building near the Strip. HR processed me quickly. New name badge, new email, a stack of non-disclosure forms. The woman assigned to show me around, Carmen, looked like anyone's favorite coworker. Efficient smile, sensible heels, the faint exhaustion of someone who lived on coffee. "You'll start in finance," she said. "Basic bookkeeping. We track casino expenditures, entertainment budgets, that sort of thing. The work's straightforward. The numbers just have extra zeros." It sounded harmless enough until she added, "Discretion is part of the job." I nodded. Discretion had been my entire life. The day blurred into spreadsheets and login credentials. By 5, I knew the passwords to systems I shouldn't, and by 6, I'd noticed that entire columns of data had been deliberately hidden behind coded macros. Nothing screamed criminal, but it whispered. That night, I sat on the couch and called home using the prepaid phone Lucia had issued. One number, 1 minute at a time. Mom answered first. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," I lied. "The apartment's nice. It could be worse." Dad's voice came next, weary but steady. "We'll send what we can every month. Stay quiet. Don't provoke them." I didn't tell him I was already inside their accounts, staring at shadows shaped like theft. After we hung up, I opened my laptop. A message blinked on the screen from an unknown address. "Welcome to the family. L.T. Lucia." Weeks folded into a pattern. I went to work, processed numbers, came home. Every Friday, a man I didn't know dropped a sealed envelope at my door, my pay stub, a copy of the family's debt balance, and sometimes a note in Lucia's looping handwriting. Progress earns mercy. I became a ghost in daylight, polite to coworkers, invisible by design. But then came the day she tested me. "Evelyn," Lucia said, appearing in my cubicle like a shadow with perfume. "How are you settling in?" "Fine." "Good. Then you'll do something for me." She laid a file on my desk. Inside were photographs of roulette tables, security footage, timestamps, and employee rosters. "We're missing money from one of our casinos in Reno. Skimming. I need someone they don't recognize to observe quietly, report patterns." "You want me to spy on your own people?" She smiled. "Think of it as proving you're useful." "How long?" 2 weeks. Identify the leak, and I'll credit your family with a year of payments." It wasn't a request. Reno was smaller, colder. I checked into a company-owned suite with cameras hidden in its Art Deco frames. For 7 days, I played the role of an accountant on audit rotation. By day, I shadowed floor managers. By night, I documented discrepancies. On the 8th night, I found it. 3 dealers passing chips under the table during peak hours, laundering them through fake VIP accounts. I submitted my report with photos and timestamps. Lucia called that night. Impressive, she said. You learn fast. Did I just save your casino? You just bought your family 18 months of freedom. Her tone was almost proud, and I hated that it mattered. Back in Vegas, the apartment no longer felt empty. It felt occupied by the ghost of every decision I hadn't made. Marcus called one evening from a borrowed phone. Hearing his voice was like remembering sunlight. They're still watching the house, he said. 2 cars at least. Your dad doesn't sleep. I'm sorry, I whispered. Don't be. Just stay alive, Eve. Promise me. I wanted to tell him I wasn't sure who that promise belonged to anymore. Before we hung up, he said something I didn't expect. Lucia called me. What? She said she was checking on your welfare. Said you looked lonely. My stomach turned. She's using you, Marcus. Whatever she says, don't answer her again. I won't. A pause. But she sounded like she already knows everything about me. She does, I said. After the call ended, I stood at the window and watched the city shimmer like an open wound. For the first time, I understood what my father had meant when he said protection could look like imprisonment from the right angle. I went to bed knowing one thing with absolute certainty. I was running out of choices. The email from Lucia came at 3:14 a.m. Subject line, an opportunity. I should have deleted it. Instead, I read every word. Evelyn, you've proven capable, reliable. It's time we discuss your future. Meet me tomorrow. 8:00 p.m. The Glass Room. Come alone. LT. The Glass Room was one of Torino Entertainment's private lounges, the kind of place where silence cost extra. By the time I arrived, the city was a bruise of light behind tinted windows. Lucia sat in a corner booth, back to the skyline, a single drink untouched before her. She looked flawless, as always. Diamond earrings, a tailored black suit, and that calm, almost maternal detachment that made every word sound reasonable. Evelyn, she greeted softly, you've been doing good work. I folded my hands to keep them from shaking. You said this was about my future. It is. She gestured for me to sit. You've outgrown spreadsheets. We need people who can be trusted with more. More what? Her lips curved, the kind of smile that hides a blade. Information, relationships, opportunities that require subtlety. I stared. You want me to join you? I want you to elevate. She leaned forward. You could cut years off your family's debt, maybe even erase it entirely. For a heartbeat, I let myself imagine it. My father sleeping again. My sister free to speak her name out loud. Marcus walking into a restaurant without checking who sat behind him. Then the picture cracked, because nothing Lucia offered came without strings that cut. And what happens, I asked quietly, when you decide I'm not useful anymore? She smiled again, softer, sadder. Then I'll miss you. That night, I sat on the balcony of the apartment and called Marcus. The city below sounded like applause from a show no one believed in. I think they want to make me one of them, I said. He went silent for a long time. You can't. Once you do, you don't get out. I know. So what are you going to do? I don't know yet. He exhaled. Eve, sometimes surviving means pretending. Just until you find the way out. I've been pretending since the day I was born. Then be the best liar in the room, he said softly. And when you get the chance, burn the room down. I smiled for the first time in days. That sounds like something Lucia would say. Maybe, he replied, but she doesn't mean it. 3 days later, the chance came. Just not the way I expected. I was working late when security buzzed through the intercom. A visitor for you, Ms. Hart? When I stepped into the lobby, a woman in a gray suit approached, flashing an ID so fast I almost missed the logo, FBI. Evelyn Kowalski, she said quietly. My name is Agent Rachel Morrison. We need to talk. Every instinct screamed trap. How did you find me? I asked. We've been watching since Detroit, she said. Since Vincent. Since you. I followed her to a corner booth of a nearby coffee shop, the opposite of the Glass Room. Cheap Formica, humming refrigerator, no one listening. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were photographs of me entering the Torino building, spreadsheets with my name on payrolls, and surveillance images of my family in Portland. You're in deep, she said. We know about the debt, the coercion, the manipulation, but we also know you're clean. You can help us. I met her eyes. Help you how? By giving us what we need to end them. She opened another folder. Bank ledgers, internal memos, copies of coded accounts that mirrored the ones I'd been auditing for weeks. We've infiltrated some of their servers. but we can't get into their core systems without physical access. You already have it. You want me to spy on them, I said. Think of it as finishing what your grandfather started. The word grandfather hit like a stone. What do I get? Freedom, Morrison said simply. For you and your family. Full immunity. Witness protection if you need it. New lives, new names. For real this time. I stared at the pages spread between us. All the proof of who I'd become, all the chances to undo it. And if I refuse? Her gaze didn't waver. Then they'll own you forever. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept hearing my father's voice the day we'd fled Portland. We survive, whatever it takes. Was this survival or suicide? I thought about Marcus, his voice, his warnings, and about Lucia, the way she could make loyalty sound like grace. I thought about my sister, still sending coded letters through the mail, each one ending with "be careful." At 2:37 a.m., I picked up my phone and called Agent Morrison back. I'll do it, I said. Her voice was calm, but I heard the exhale behind it. Relief. Maybe guilt. Good. There's a device on its way to you. Looks like a flash drive. Plug it into any computer in the main finance system. It'll copy everything automatically. How long do I have? 2 weeks. After that, we move. The next morning, Lucia appeared at my cubicle, all brightness and charm. You're being promoted, she said. Congratulations. For what? For earning trust. Her words landed like the sound of a door locking behind me. That afternoon, HR sent an email. Effective immediately, Ms. Evelyn Hart is appointed Senior Financial Associate with elevated system access privileges. Exactly what the FBI needed. That night, under the hum of my apartment lights, I plugged in the device. The progress bar moved like a heartbeat. File after file transferred. Wire transactions, laundering networks, political contributions labeled as entertainment consulting. Then one folder caught my eye, Kowalski family account. Inside, ledgers detailed every payment we'd made, except the numbers didn't add up. The original debt wasn't $3 million. It was $500,000, inflated to control us. Lucia hadn't just trapped us. She'd rewritten the terms of our imprisonment. I sat back cold all over. For the first time in months, I wasn't afraid. I was furious. I sent the files to Agent Morrison with a single message. They've been lying to everyone. Her reply came minutes later. Perfect. 2 more weeks, and it's over. I closed the laptop, looked out across the city, and whispered to the glass, 2 weeks. 2 weeks to play their game. 2 weeks to make them believe I was one of them. 2 weeks to end this. The 2 weeks that followed were the longest of my life. Every morning, I walked into the Torino offices with a practiced smile. Every evening, I sent fragments of their empire bleeding through that flash drive into the FBI's servers. And every night, I dreamed of home. My father laughing in the kitchen, my sister playing piano in the living room, Marcus pulling me into a dance when there was no music. Those memories felt borrowed now, souvenirs from a life I'd rented under false names. Lucia, meanwhile, was everywhere, in meetings, in elevators, in my head. Congratulations again, she said one morning as we rode the glass lift up to the 25th floor. My grandfather's very pleased with you. I'm sure he is. He should be. You've proven loyal. She said the word like a test. Loyalty, I said, depends on how long the leash is. Lucia smiled faintly, spoken like someone who's finally learning the business. When the elevator doors opened, she touched my arm, a gesture that looked friendly but felt like a claim. We have bigger plans for you, Evelyn. Don't ruin it. Her heels clicked away down the hall, leaving the air sharp with perfume and warning. That night, Agent Morrison called. We've reviewed the files. It's more than we expected. The money trail alone will bury them. Then what are we waiting for? We need to time the arrests across multiple states. When we move, it has to be all at once. How long? 3 days, just 3 more. 3 days. After months of pretending, of holding my breath, freedom was a number I could count on one hand. But the universe, as always, had other plans. The next morning, Lucia appeared at my desk with a plane ticket. Pack light, she said. We're going to Portland. My blood turned to ice. Why? She handed me a thin folder. Inside were photos of people I hadn't seen in years. My old teacher, the neighbor who used to babysit us, the clerk from the grocery store we'd once frequented under fake names. Some of your father's former associates have been talking to reporters. I want you to remind them that silence is safety. You want me to threaten them? I want you to persuade them, she said smoothly. Use that quiet intelligence of yours. Make them understand. I'm not doing that. Lucia tilted her head. then someone else will, and she won't be as polite. I thought of those faces, those ordinary people who had once waved from driveways or handed us receipts, people who didn't know the blood that clung to our new names. When do we leave? I asked. Tomorrow morning. I didn't wait until morning. I used the emergency number Morrison had given me, memorized months ago, but never dialed. They're sending me to Portland, I said. They want me to make people disappear. Morrison's voice stayed calm. That's perfect. We were going to act this week anyway. You'll go, but we'll be waiting. The moment you make contact with any of their targets, we'll intervene. It'll look like an arrest. Public, convincing. Your family will be extracted the same day. Arrest? It's the only way to protect you. The Torinos will think we caught you, not that you cooperated. And after? You vanish. New identity, new life. No more debts, no more Lucia. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Then I said the words that felt heavier than truth. Do it. The plane landed under a low gray sky. Portland looked smaller than I remembered, its streets damp and familiar in ways that hurt. Lucia drove. You'll start with this one, she said, handing me a slip of paper. Mrs. Patterson, she used to know your father. Remind her that curiosity kills more than cats. I stared at the name. My high school guidance counselor, the woman who'd written my scholarship recommendation letter, who'd once told me I could do anything if I stopped doubting myself. I couldn't threaten her, but I didn't have to, because I knew who was waiting. The rain was steady when I pulled up outside Mrs. Patterson's house. The curtains glowed with lamplight. I stood at the porch, my hand trembling against the doorbell. It opened before I touched it. Evelyn? She said, astonished. Good Lord, I haven't seen you since... I need to talk to you, I interrupted, loud enough for the hidden microphones I knew the FBI had placed. About my father. Confusion flickered in her eyes. Is everything all right? I stepped back, voice clear and rehearsed. You need to stop asking questions about the Kowalski family for your own safety. A black SUV screeched to a halt across the street. Doors flew open. FBI! Mrs. Patterson gasped. Evelyn, what is... Stay inside, I whispered, just before they reached me. Hands grabbed my arms. Cold metal snapped around my wrists. Cameras flashed. Lucia's car idled at the curb. Through the rain-smeared window, I saw her face. Frozen. Betrayed. Perfectly still. They shoved me into the back of the SUV. Agent Morrison leaned forward from the front seat. Sorry about the theatrics, she murmured. But it worked. They bought it. The warrants are being executed right now. What about my family? They're safe. Extraction team already has them. You did it, Evelyn. It's over. I closed my eyes. No, I said softly. It's finally starting. That night, the raids rolled across the country like thunder. In Las Vegas, Dominic Torino was pulled from his mansion in handcuffs. In Reno, casino managers were lined up against the walls of their own floors. In Los Angeles, shell companies were raided, their servers seized. By dawn, Lucia's photograph was on every news broadcast. Torino heiress arrested in massive racketeering and money laundering sting. The world finally knew their name, and the world finally forgot mine. 3 months later, I sat in a small cabin near the Oregon coast, wind howling through pines. My new ID said Elena Hayes, 20 years old, consultant. But sometimes, when the wind was loud enough, I still heard my real name in it. The FBI had made good on their promise. My family relocated, debts erased, the Torinos dismantled. Agent Morrison had testified that I'd acted under duress. My record was clean. Marcus found me through channels I hadn't thought possible. The first time he showed up at my door, I almost didn't open it. Are you real? I asked. He smiled. Only mostly. I read about Lucia, he said. 15 years. She'll serve 10, I murmured. She always lands on her feet. She can't reach you now. I'm not sure that's the same thing. He looked at me for a long time, then said quietly, You did what you had to do. You saved them. I shook my head. I burned everything I touched. Then build something new out of the ashes. The sea wind lifted his words and carried them into the gray. For the first time, I thought maybe I could. 6 months later, I sent Agent Morrison a letter. No name, no return address, just a line I needed her to know. Sometimes freedom doesn't feel like peace, but it's still worth fighting for. I sealed the envelope, left it at the post office, and walked out into the rain. Somewhere behind me, the life of Evelyn Hart ended for good. Ahead of me, Elena Hayes took her first breath, and the world kept turning.